In the heart of Azura Wheel, a single father hires a gentle tutor for his daughters, never suspecting she is a Wormlin heir, hiding a secret that could change their lives forever. A simple lesson in floating light becomes the spark for a story of hidden power, sacrifice, and a truth so immense it could shatter or rebuild everything they know. Stay with me, because nothing in this home is what it seems. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video, and tell us where are you watching from. Now, let's jump into the story. The pale morning of Azura Wheel drifted in through the living wall, a soft wash of simulated dawn that made the corridor lights seem shy. In the Read Home module, Laurana Velis shaped a lattice of hovering prisms above the table, each shard humming with a faint, friendly glow. Her scales carried a quiet sheen, not the loud kind that shouted status, but a gentle shimmer like tidewater under starlight. With the subtlest motion of her fingers, the prisms tilted and locked into a spiral, then unfolded into a pattern the twins had never seen. Ivy leaned forward, elbows on the table. How do they float like that? Your hands remember paths before your mind does, Laurana said, her voice threaded with calm harmonics. Watch the path the light prefers, then guide it. Mira tried to copy the motion, tongue peeking out in fierce focus. Her prism wobbled, dipped, and steadied as Laurana added a whisper of field support that the child would never notice. There, Laurana said, her voice threaded with calm harmonics. Watch the path the light prefers, then guide it. Mira tried to copy the motion, tongue peeking out in fierce focus. Her prism wobbled, dipped, and steadied as Laurana added a whisper of field support that the child would never notice. There, Laurana said, you gave it a reason to stay. For 3 months, Laurana had been their tutor and caretaker, patient, precise, endlessly kind. She taught drills for safety gates, pressure checks, and the little rituals of station life that keep small humans safe in big metal rings. She baked odd, dense cakes that the twins pretended to like because they adored her. They called her Miss Lyra, which warmed parts of her heart she had not expected to discover. What no one on the wheel knew was that Laurana Velis was heir to the Velis Consortium, the Wormlin trade power that threaded cargo and culture through half the local routes. She wore a simple work badge and listed modest credentials because she wanted to learn in the only classroom that truly mattered to her. Real homes, real hunger, real hopes. Jonas Reed keyed in from the airlock with a weary smile and the stain of coolant on his sleeve. Mission report, he said, crouching so the twins could fly into his arms. Were you brave and brilliant? Both, Ivy said, very solemn. And we learned the 3-breath protocol at bulkheads. And we saw Miss Lyra make light fold, Mira added, eyes wide. The prisms listened to her. Jonas smiled at Laurana over the twins' heads. Gratitude lived in that smile, the kind that grows when someone shows up again and again. Thank you, he said. I've got transit credits on the counter if you're taking them to the public ring. We'll walk the long arc, Laurana replied. The sky there tells better stories. They crossed sectors in their tidy suits, the twins reciting the names of safety markers like Nurser. Vendors called greetings by scent and sound. Keth of the Alari winked all 4 eyelids, slipped the twins a packet of star-lace fruit, and told them to chew slowly so the sparkle would last. Laurana paid with her own funds, quiet as snowfall. At the public observation ring, the Crimson Shoal Nebula spilled across the viewport like silk in motion. Jonas's algorithms helped freighters slip around those curls of light without tearing themselves on radiation reefs. But the freighter's crews never saw it like this, not at rest, not like a painting that breathed. Our daddy drew lines through that, Ivy said, proud and soft. He traced paths that wanted to be found, Lorana said. She had seen his code through private, careful channels. It was elegant work, clean, humane, and overlooked by managers who could not see past quarterly reports. A woman nearby gave Lorana the kind of glance that assumes distance is safety. "Never thought I'd see a wormling minding human children," she muttered, not quite under her breath. Mira lifted her chin. "Miss Lyra is the best." Lorana's scales dimmed a shade, then steadied. "It's all right," she told the twins. "Sometimes fear wears the face of certainty." They walked the rim and watched a tug ease a cargo chain into dock. The twins quizzed Lorana about ear flicks, crest lines, and friendly tail sign among passing species. Lorana translated movement into meaning. A shrug in one culture meant apology in another. A lifted wrist in a third was a promise to return. The twins learned this grammar the way they learned air and laughter. On the slow way home, gentle news turned sharp. A whisper of layoffs skimmed the corridor like a draft no one could find. Later, in the quiet of evening, Jonas stood by the view wall while the twins drowsed on their pillows. "There's talk," he said to Lorana. "If it's true, I may lose my shift." "I'm telling you because I don't know if I can keep you on." Lorana listened the way she wove fields, attentive to the space between words. "You carry more than one person should," she said. "We'll manage today while we work on tomorrow." That night, in her small rented room, that was not the palace suite she could have claimed, Lorana opened a silent channel keyed to her blood. She sent a request marked personal to Matriarch Savreya Velis. Not an order, not a demand, a question. Would the consortium evaluate Auric Navworks for strategic partnership based on code merit and community impact, not just market share? The Matriarch seal returned with a single note. Review initiated, and for the first time in weeks, Lorana's breath eased. Lorana did not sleep much after the Matriarch's reply. She ran simulations in her head, the way other people hum lullabies. She thought about Jonas, who carried exhaustion like a coat he would never hang, and about Ivy and Mira, who navigated a Zero wheel as if it were an old friend with many doors. Above all, she held to a stubborn belief that commerce without care becomes a mass problem that eats its own future. The review moved with the speed of power, quiet and quick. Aides from the consortium parsed Auric Navworks' back catalog, reconstructed test lanes, and stress-tested Jonas's route logic against edge case storms. The results were clear, even without ceremony. The code wanted a larger stage. The workers wanted a better bargain. The station wanted to breathe easier. Savreya opened a private thread. Her voice carried the low warmth of a forge that never fully cools. "You vanished from your responsibilities," she said, "and now you ask for an acquisition. I ask for a chance to build something that doesn't bleed the people who keep it alive," Lorana answered, steady. "I ask that we reward craft, not only scale." "This is sentimental. It is structural," Lorana said. "When we invest in the builders, our lanes stay open longer. Freighters arrive on time and intact. Parents tuck children in without calculating whether someone else must miss a meal. That is not softness, Mother. That is strategy." Savreya's silence stretched. In Wyrmwood's speech, silence is rarely empty. It is a field where meaning settles until it can be named. "The board will object," she said at last. "Then let them," Lorana replied. "When the lanes through the shoal run smoother and our rivals wonder why, we will have our answer." On a Zero wheel, life threaded on. Lorana packed the twins' satchels with things she pretended came from Jonas's meager budget and actually bought with her own credits. Fresh fruit, a small art set, a better filter for Ivy's suit. She taught them the trick of counting breaths when nerves prickle. They taught her a song from their education stream, and she learned to sing off-key with enthusiasm. In the market sector, Keth of the Alari caught Lorana's eye. "You smell like decisions," he said, which in his people's idiom counted as both warning and blessing. "I am trying to make a good one," she replied. "Make it twice," he advised. "Once for the numbers, once for the neighbors." The layoffs rumor returned as a message with Jonas's name on it. He arrived mid-shift, face pale from holding steady. "They say I might be cut in 3 weeks," he told Lorana at the airlock. "I don't know how to tell the girls. We will not borrow tomorrow's fear before it asks to be carried," Lorana said softly, "but we will make a plan." He laughed, a sound half relief, half disbelief. "You always have one." "I have many," she said. "And then I listen for the plan that wants to work." That night, Savraya sent a second message. The board would convene for an emergency proposal. Lorana prepared the seed paper of the case, plain and precise. The pitch did not lean on titles. It leaned on evidence. Reduced accident rates if Jonas's logic governed shoal crossings. Increased reliability producing trust. Trust translating to contracts. Contracts sustaining families who would then spend at the very markets that keep a station bright. During the meeting, a board aide asked the question everyone else's posture had already shaped. "What moves you to champion a small firm in a middle ring when you could be negotiating with the giant carriers?" "Because the giants are watching only each other," Lorana said. "Someone should watch the people who keep the lights on." There was the usual thrum of counter-arguments about margins and scale. Savraya let the conversation flow as if it were water seeking its easiest path, then turned it with a palm. "We will proceed," she said, "conditional on a full technical audit and an integration plan that centers worker stability." The message reached Azura, wheel like sunrise. Auric Navworks was not being closed. It was being lifted, expanded, protected. Jonas received the news at his console and left 2 fingerprints on the screen where he tried to steady himself. He reached home with a quiet shock still inside him. Lorana was arranging learning blocks into a maze. Ivy and Mira were racing a little rover through the turns. He stood in the doorway, tried to speak, failed, and then laughed as if his ribs were gears finally catching. "They're buying us," he said. "No, that's wrong. They're partnering with us. They want me to lead the new navigation unit." He shook his head. "I don't understand why." Lorana felt the edge of the moment arrive. She had rehearsed honesty for days and found it heavy and light at once. She let her scales shift from their quiet worker's gleam to the low gold that told the truth about her birth. "Because I asked them to look," she said. "Because I could." Jonas stared as if the air had glitched. "Who are you?" "Lorana Velis," she said, and in saying it, she did not step away from Miss Lyra the twins loved. She simply stood taller inside both names. "My mother is the matriarch of the consortium that just chose your team." He sat very slowly. The twins were busy making the rover hop a tiny barrier. The world had not ended. "You've been in our home," he said. "You've made the worst oatcakes I've ever tasted. You taught my children to count heartbeats in a crowded corridor, and you kept this from us." "I kept it," she said, "because titles wrap around people like nets. I wanted to learn the shape of a day without one. I wanted to see what work looks like when the work is keeping small hands steady." His first reply was anger, because trust and surprise are often twins themselves. His second was hurt. His third was a long exhale that let room for another thought. Who had she been? Every day, when names were just sound, she had been kind. She had been present. She had been there. I don't know what to do with this, he admitted. We can start with plain truth, she said. I care for your children. I respect your craft. The acquisition is not charity. It is good business built on good work. And after that? After that, we keep showing up, she said, and we see if trust can grow back, the way light returns to the ring after an eclipse. He nodded once, slow. The girls will ask questions. We will answer them carefully, she said, and honestly. Outside the view wall, the crimson shoal drifted as if listening. The consortium flagged Auric's name onto every freight forum within 3 jumps. Jonas's team kept their desks and gained new tools. The station gossip line tried to knit a scandal and ran out of thread when faced with the simple fact that reliability had improved and no one had lost a paycheck. Lirana arrived at the workspace with a badge that said advisor and a sweater the twins had chosen because it had small moons sewn on the sleeves. Her scales were set to the soft spectrum gold that did not startle passers-by. She moved through code reviews like a gardener, pruning where needed, encouraging new growth, pointing out the small shoots that deserved light. During breaks, she sat on the floor with Ivy and Mira to sketch maps of feelings. How worry sits in the stomach, like a stone. How joy fizzles behind the ribs like static before rain. Jonas watched from the doorway sometimes, hands wrapped around a cup of station coffee gone cold, because he forgot to sip. He had never imagined that advice about hibernation cycles for young Zephyr would share a whiteboard with hazard avoidance logic. Yet here both sets of notes lived, companionable. Trust took time. Lirana did not rush it. When questions arrived, why she had stayed hidden, why she cared, ... What it meant, she answered in small portions the way one feeds a recovering bird. The twins set the pace without knowing it. They still asked for bedtime stories and still rejected oatcakes with choreographed politeness. Jonas granted Lirana the courtesy of frustration, and when it passed, he granted her the courtesy of a joke. The station bakery has classes, he told her. You could infiltrate them. I prefer honest failures to forged pastries, she said, straight-faced, until they both smiled. The idea of the family center came from a moment that would have passed unnoticed in another life. Ivy had a study day when Jonas had to run a late test. Lirana set up a quiet corner in the Auric office with puzzles, picture streams, and a small cushion fort. An Alari colleague saw it and whispered, I wish there were a place like this for my little one. The next day, Lirana brought a proposal. The center would sit at the heart of the expanded campus. Not a perk, but the point. It would include care spaces designed with cross-species wisdom, learning rooms that respected different senses, and a workshop where parents could drop in between shifts to help build toys or tune a rover or teach a song. Jonas read the draft and felt something ache in the best way. Where did this come from? He asked. From watching mornings stumble and afternoons sprint, she said. From seeing good people choose between wages and presence. From remembering that the future is very short if the smallest are not welcomed into it. He took the plan to the integration committee with a voice steadier than he felt. There were cost questions and space questions and a tired, old worry about distraction. Then a frail, clear voice across the table cut through the noise. If the workers cannot raise their children, said an engineer near retirement, you will have no workers soon enough. The vote passed. Projects of the heart always pull the whole body into motion. Jonas stayed late less often because he worked smarter with help. Laurana negotiated with designers to make sure the nap rooms dimmed on a curve that matched the Zephyr melatonin cascade, and that the safe climb walls could translate grip patterns for tentacle and talon as easily as for fingers. Ivy and Mira tested every cushion for bounce. Keth of the Allery donated a set of wind chimes that rang in chords meant to soothe, not sedate. The day they opened, Azura Wheel felt a half-click lighter. Children ran on rubber floors that whispered back hello. Parents learned each other's names. The center sign simply said, "The Bridge." When asked about the title, Laurana smiled and said, "We build what we need." Over weeks, routines settled. Jonas led the navigation unit with a calm that made other people calm. Laurana split her time between the center and strategic threads. In the evening, she returned to the Read Home module with scuffed knees from floor games and 3 new ways to soothe a toddler in a gravity fluctuation. The friendship between Jonas and Laurana shifted by degrees, hard to measure and easy to feel. It showed up in the small handoff of a lunch tin with a better sandwich inside. It showed when Jonas learned enough Wormlin to say a clumsy thank you, and Laurana learned enough station slang to tease him about his serious eyebrows. The twins were oblivious to adult hesitations and unerring in their certainty that family is whoever keeps showing up. One quiet night, by the view wall, Jonas said, "You're more than our tutor." "And you are more than your title," Laurana replied. "What do we call that?" She thought of the center, the code, the children asleep down the short hall. "We might call it us," she said. He did not press for the larger declaration because the small one felt true enough to hold. They would make the rest as tea. And Azura Wheel, listening the way old structures do, hummed back approval. Seasons on a station are measured by festivals, not weather. A year spun by in lanterns, repairs, and new names stitched onto small jackets. The bridge doubled, then tripled its rooms. Jonas's routes became the standard through the Crimson Shoal. The consortium's rivals tried to copy the work and missed the quiet part, the care that made the math sing. One morning, the Read Home module held more life than usual. A Zephyr toddler named Timo watched his own wing shadows on the wall and laughed from pure delight. The station authority had signed the last adoption stamp the night before, and Jonas had cried into the collar of his own shirt where no one would see. Laurana saw anyway and loved him for it. "Not inside, little comet," Laurana said as Timo's wings lifted him toward the light dome. She guided him down with a barely there field, then kissed the top of his soft head. Ivy and Mira flanked him like Queen's guards who wore mismatched socks. Later that week, Director Hale from Governance arrived with a portfolio and kind eyes. He stepped around a pram, a stack of art panels, and 2 small Alari building a tower out of cushion bricks. "I have a request," he said to Jonas and Laurana in the center's workshop. "Document what you've done. We want to replicate the model in the new construction ring. And, if you're willing, across the outer stations." Jonas blew out a slow breath. "That's a lot of nights with very little sleep. That is a lot of mornings where a parent doesn't have to choose between overtime and being there," Laurana said. "We can do it." The twins were invited to carry lanterns at a ceremony marking the center's expansion. They did it with exaggerated seriousness until Timo tried to follow and tripped over his own joy. Ivy caught him. Mira tickled him until the crying turned back into laughter. Laurana watched and felt a lift in her chest that rivaled flight. In the quiet after the celebration, Jonas and Laurana stood by the view wall. The shoal glowed like embers in a thoughtful hearth. "I keep thinking about beginnings," he said. "About the day you walked into my life dressed like an ordinary tutor and turned out to be a revolution in comfortable shoes." My shoes are very good, she said, deadpan. Then softer. I keep thinking about continuings, about choosing the next right thing, until somehow you have a life. He set a hand, tentative, on hers. Would you continue with us? Not only as Miss Lyra, but as Lyrana, in all the ways that word can mean. She did not answer right away because she had learned that good questions deserve a breath between them and their replies. The breath filled itself with images. Ivy's proud grin, Mira's careful curiosity, Timo's wobbling flights, Jonas's steady humor, the center's hum. Yes, she said. Let's make the kind of ordinary that feels like magic, because it is made of daily kindness. The ceremony they chose months later startled no one and delighted everyone. Traditions braided together without knotting. There was a wormlin binding with light patterns, and a human promise spoken simply. The twins placed a pin on Lyrana's tunic, shaped like two small stars, bridged by a tiny arc. Timo tried to eat the ribbon on the cake and was gently dissuaded. Sevria attended without entourage and left with pockets full of children's drawings. You have altered our maps, she told Lyrana, eyes softer than rumor would guess, not only in trade. Maps that do not include the people walking them are useless, Lyrana said. We can draw better. The months that followed were not smooth, because smooth is not how real lives move. There were tired mornings and broken pumps, and a stretch where everyone caught the same station cold. There was also 1,000 quiet successes. A parent learning a lullaby from another culture and singing it to a child who slept well for the first time in days. A teenager from the outer ring finding a mentor in Jonas and deciding to stay in school. A Zephyri elder teaching the twins a balance game that looked like dance and felt like joy. When the first refugees from a frontier scuffle arrived at the center, eyes too wide for their faces, Lyrana went to greet them. The parents said, "We do not know if we belong here." "You do," she replied, in the tone you use when you set a truth in the room, like a lamp. We saved a seat. The twins folded the new children into a game without ceremony, because ceremony was unnecessary. Timo toddled after them, chirping in Zephyri syllables that made no sense and perfect sense at once. Jonas stood with Director Hale, reviewing expansion plans with numbers that, for once, seemed to agree they wanted to help. That evening, Ivy tugged Jonas's sleeve. "Tell the story," she said, "about how Miss Lyra came to us." Jonas settled on the floor, back to the wall, legs stretched out so two small beings could use his knees as mountains. Lyrana leaned where she could see every face. "It began," Jonas said, "when I needed someone brave to help me raise two small galaxies, and the station sent me a tutor who couldn't bake, but could turn light into ladders." The children laughed at the baking line, because they had heard it before and loved it more each time. Lyrana laughed too, because some jokes are simply another way to stay home. Outside, ships followed gentle curves through dangerous light, because a human engineer listened to a nebula as if it were speech, and a wormlin mentor believed that care is infrastructure. Inside, a family made of names and choices and the courage to try kept building their bridge, one ordinary, shining plank at a time. And when sleep finally settled over the module, the station's hum sounded like a promise that tomorrow would welcome whoever knocked, translating fear into belonging and distance into a path you could walk together.